So, in this video, I'm going to explain to you guys fairly briefly what it is that I'm looking for with the discussion posts that I want you guys to write. So again, as I said in the sort of introduction to this video, and as I wrote in the description of the discussion posts, the idea is that the discussion posts and responses will sort of give us a kind of conversation that we don't get because we're not meeting together in class. I'm in general a big proponent of the belief that discussion classes are the best way of learning, and that by talking through different ideas and bouncing ideas off of one another and developing them and things like this, this is the best way to figure out what a piece of literature means. This is the best way to learn a concept. This is the best way to figure out how to apply different ideas and things like this. So that's my sort of biggest, I don't know, I want to say bugbear, but I think that's a stupid word. That's my biggest sort of concern. The thing that I dislike the most about teaching online classes is the fact that we don't get in-class discussion. So what I want really is for the discussion boards to function as a kind of surrogate for that. That being said, the discussion posts that I'm going to ask you guys to do are a little bit artificial compared to actual sort of spontaneous conversation. But that's okay, because the thing that they will do well is to get you started thinking critically about literature, thinking about finding evidence, thinking about supporting an argument, and then when we get to the term paper at the end of the semester, you will have 6 weeks worth of practice of doing this, making critical arguments about literature on a small scale. So essentially, what I want you to do, roughly 200-word discussion posts, and each discussion post that you write, and you're writing one a week, they're due by Wednesday at midnight, Eastern Standard Time. Each discussion post that you write should have a 3-part structure. And this 3-part structure is the basis of critical writing in academia. I want a claim, I want evidence, and then I want interpretation. So what that involves, so a claim is an argumentative point presenting your stance on a piece of literature. In order to be argumentative, this has to be something that could be reasonably disagreed with. So if we say, for instance, Keats's Ode on a Grecian Urn is about figures painted on a pot, this isn't an argument. This is a statement, basically, of fact. So if it's a statement of fact, and no one could sort of reasonably say, no, it's not about that, that's not an argument. If, on the other hand, as I did in my close reading video of Keats, and obviously you don't sort of have time to do all of that in 200 words, but you could start doing something like this. If we said, for instance, Keats relies on irony to explore his melancholy theme, then this is an argument, because someone could reasonably disagree with that and say, no, Keats is not being ironic here. Then what you have to do is provide evidence from the text. So this may take the form of direct quotes, this may take the form of paraphrasing, this may take the form of providing specific detail based on the text itself. So if I was going to provide evidence for my argument about Keats using irony, I might point to, for instance, lines where he talks about the sounds of music and make mention of the fact that this is a lyric poem, so this is essentially a musical genre that Keats is working with. The third thing that you have to do, the third portion of this triad, and this is probably the most difficult for a lot of people, is interpretation. You have to explain why the evidence that you are giving supports the argument that you're making. So, again, with this Keats argument, the reason that it's ironic that Keats puts so much emphasis on music and on sound is because he himself is using music to give voice to the silenced urn. But in that giving voice to the urn, in that creating a poetic voice for this silent depiction, Keats is also exploring his own imminent silencing by death. So he's exploring the impossibility of the immortal song. And he's doing this ironically by using a musical form to explore something that is silenced music. So this would be your claim, evidence, interpretation structure, and this would be the basic, again, form of a critical argument. Obviously, longer critical arguments, scholarly papers and books and things like this are much more in-depth and much more complicated, but this is basically it. Like, it's the same essential structure. So the other thing that you have to do in terms of discussion posts is by Friday at midnight Eastern Standard Time, you're going to have to post a discussion response to at least one of your colleagues' posts. The discussion response is much more open about sort of what form it can take. I want you to engage in some kind of a critical dialogue with them, whether that is posing a question, asking for clarification, presenting an alternative interpretation, thinking through connections to other pieces of literature, to other works, ideas, whether this is presenting a different theory, pointing out other evidence that they have not, that the original post did not sort of capitalize on, whatever it is. As long as you are engaging with your peers in some sort of critical discussion. And I will also be posting responses to your discussion posts, so you will get at least that bit of critical dialogue with me, so that I can sort of answer back to the ideas that you're developing. And again, one of the options that you will have for your term paper at the end of the semester is going to be to expand one of the discussion posts that you write over the course of the 6 weeks.